Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the Absolute, you have the Deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders. With blood and rage of crimson red, ripped from a corpse so freshly dead, I am the Uncanny Omar, and I cannot remember the rest of the Red Lantern oath, but I am here to talk to you about this new omnibus from DC Comics. We are going to be talking about the Red Lanterns, the new 52 omnibus. So, join me. I'm sure it rhymes with hate, maybe? I think? Hate? Late? Eight? Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. What we're looking at here is the latest omnibus from DC Comics. This is the Red Lanterns. We are looking at another new 52 omnibus. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you that if you've read the Sinestro Cold War, Blackest Night, and you want to continue reading Green Lantern and all the other Lantern stories like Sinestro, or even Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern story, this isn't really that affected by the new 52. There's a couple of little retcons, and it's mainly to some of the characters, and that's about it. And speaking of characters here, we have the cover by Ed Benes with Atrocities and some of the other Red Lanterns. As a matter of fact, these are the ones that are going to be the big players in this game, because we are looking at, of course, let's see, there he is, Dex-Starr, that's a fan favorite, Skylex, and Ratchet, and of course, Bleeze, who was also part of the New Guardians during this era. And then who is this? Red Bull. Can it be another animal? Come on, it's the Red Bull, right? Who is that, and what does he have to do with any of this? Of course, Dex-Starr is such a popular character that he's not only on the spine, but I'll show you here in a little bit. I love the design of all of the Red Lantern rings right there. Red Lanterns, the new 52 omnibus, Milligan and Soul, the DC logo, and then this image right there of a fan favorite character turned red. And the stories in here have been collected before in a long out-of-print trade paperback series. There's a total of 6 of these. But the mapping and what is included in here is so much better than this. So if you're looking for these, if you're just missing 1 or 2, they probably might come down in price now that this is out. I think it was volume 4, maybe 5, that was just ridiculously expensive after it went out of print. But now that this is out, you know, your chances of picking 1 or 2 volumes of these at a cheaper rate is better. But this is mapped so much better, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a bit. Let's look underneath the dust jacket. Again, Dex-Starr over here, and who is this young lady holding the Red Lantern ring? And other characters, including our first Earthling that becomes a Red Lantern. And from the very first issue, issue number 1, is another image of Dex-Starr. People really love this cat, and for a reason. Alright, we are going to crack this omnibus open and talk about the type of stories found in here. I'm going to give you the pitch of what this is and how it's kind of divided, and more importantly, how it's mapped, and then we'll look at the extras and build of the Omni. Alright, let's go ahead and get the Omni opened, and here's a bunch of Red Lantern rings, which is going to be a theme throughout the entire Omni in the way that it's designed, and in the end sheets here. And I dig that. I like that. I like a lot of the Lanterns rings, whether it's green or yellow or, yes, even red. And then we have this character right here, who is a big part of the Green Lantern, or the Red Lanterns, and this character as well. So this book really is divided into kind of 2 different sections. You have the Peter Milligan section, who he's one of the writers that kicks it off, and then you have the Charles Soule section of the book. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences and what it means, because by the time you get to Charles Soule, there's a different like status quo for the characters, and something that happens after a big event. As far as the artist, this is separated, unfortunately. I'm not a fan when they do this, but it is in alphabetical order instead of who drew the most issues in here. But for example, Ed Benes is the one that kicks it off. He's the one that does the first about 8 issues or so. But you also have other art in here from like Jimmy Calafiore, Will Conrad, you got Yildiray Cinar, Jorge Jimenez, Jeff Johnson, Aaron Cooter, and Corey Smith, Joe Prado, and Sal Regla, and names like that are artists on the book. Then you have the colorists here, Santi Arcaz, Antonia Vina, and also Gabe Elateb. And then letters like Taylor Esposito and Dave Sharp, just to name a few. And you have this image right here of Atrocities, and of course Dex-Starr, who they just love, and who doesn't love that cat. Table of contents letting you know where you're going to find each issue, but also what I love is they tell you when it was originally published, what the name, the title of that said issue is, and 2 pages worth. The solicits have been wrong for this book. I think the closest one is actually Lunar. So I'm going to tell you what exactly is collected in here, and we'll talk a little bit about the mapping, and of course give you the pitch of the stories found in here. So collected in here is Green Lantern 23, 23.1, 24, 28, Green Lantern Corps 24, Green Lantern The New Guardians 24, Green Lantern Annual Number 2, The Infinity Man and the Forever People 5 through 6, Red Lanterns 1 through 40, Red Lanterns Annual Number 1, Red Lanterns Futures End Number 1, Stormwatch Number 9, and Supergirl 26 to 33. That is a lot of Supergirl. I think the only one that I saw solicited was actually like Supergirl 31. Now, there's also the material from over here, Green Lantern number 20. That's something that they left out of the solicits as well, because that's Jeff Johns' final issue, and in the aftermath of that is when we get this new era of the Red Lanterns. All right, so this book has 1,456 pages and retails for $125. Love this cover. The covers, I'm sure you probably noticed, don't have a logo. They don't have a number, neither on the back nor the front. And you're going to have to go back to the table of contents to find where your favorite issues are, or where you left off, or just get yourself a bookmark, because there are numbers at the bottom of the pages. All right, so at the very, very beginning, this is all set in the aftermath of War of the Lanterns, so a little bit of spoilers for what happened there, as far as like who the villain was, because I do have to talk about that in the status quo of the Red Lanterns during this era. We see that Dex-Starr is just roaming the galaxy, and he finds that these group of aliens are torturing other aliens, and he comes in here and they kind of outnumber him. So they kind of take him on and take him down. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is that his ring is translating his thoughts. I hear the screams of your victims, sadists. That really, that doesn't get talked about often, I don't think, or none of the other writers ever really do anything with it. But I would have loved to have seen them follow through with that. And then, of course, the guy that everybody thinks about besides Dex-Starr, and that is Atrocities, the character that we've seen in the pages of Green Lantern, and then, of course, Blackest Night. The idea of the Red Lanterns was first established in the Sinestro Corps War, where we saw flashes of these characters. And speaking of flashes, we're going to Earth here from time to time, but then we're going back to Sector 666, which is East Malt, which is the home base. That's where the Red Lantern is located. But we'll go back to Earth, and I'll talk about why here in a little bit. So we do have other characters that are going to be a big part of this particular run, like the character of Scalox right here, and this big face that we do come to, like, as ridiculous as the character of Zilia's Socks looks, like, there's just something unique about him, and you start kind of feeling sorry for him. And then, of course, Blease. Now, Blease during this time is also part of the New 52 New Guardians series. Now, this is in the aftermath of the War of the Lanterns, and we find out that Atrocitus has actually kept the body of Krona, the Guardian that was pretty much the cause of some of the things, especially to him, some of the horrible things that happened in his life with the Manhunters, and I'll go back to that in a little bit. But he blames Hal Jordan for killing Krona and taking that away from him. But he's keeping the body of Krona and talking to Krona. As a matter of fact, there's a flashback here in issue number 1 where he's like, "You took my family away from me." And that kind of makes you believe that, oh, damn, there's a lot more to these characters like Atrocities than just that. And you're going to find more and more about these characters. And we'll go back to the human characters in a little bit. I'll explain what those are. But we do find out that, like, through the first issue, that the Red Lanterns aren't really seeing themselves as villains. They're kind of seeing themselves as monitors of space that do different things than the Green Lanterns. They don't have the code that the Green Lanterns do. So we also find out through here that Atrocities has the power of seeing the future through blood, and something that he sees is like death and turmoil. So he wants to put a stop to it, and he's going to need the help of his Red Lanterns. So it's a little bit different than, like, even Sinestro, like the Sinestro Corps, how they view Sinestro and their leader. It feels a little bit different than that. Atrocitus goes to a planet by himself and tries to liberate the people, and he finds this little girl here that just lost her entire family, and kind of reminds him a bit of his kids, like how he lost his entire family. And then we go back to Sector 666, and East Malt, or Weiss Malt. I'm not sure how to properly pronounce it. I love that cover by Bennis right there. But there is this ocean of blood right here. And the ocean of blood lets you retain your sanity. So when you become a Red Lantern, you let the rage drive you. You let it almost... You become like a feral state type of being. Because rage has just taken over you. However, if you survive the trials of the ocean of blood and come out, then you can retain your sanity. For example, this is Bleeze, and Bleeze has this horrible, absolutely horrible backstory where there are two suitors. There's like she had wings in her planet, and there were two suitors that wanted her and they were interested in her. However, they get the help of a Yellow Lantern, and the Yellow Lantern, man, it's dark. The Yellow Lantern ends up killing her family, tearing her wings apart, and sexually assaulting her. And again, because this is the Red Lanterns, they're not great people. They're not like the Green Lanterns. Atrocitus, after hearing this, like, just starts choking her. And decides, that he is going to get revenge for her. And go back to her home planet and find these two people that align themselves with the Yellow Lantern and obliterate them. And that's the type of characters the Red Lanterns are. It's not like good characters. They're not good people. They're not good aliens. But they think they're doing the right thing. And that, to me, is what makes a great villain. And there was a reason why this went on for 40-plus issues, including the annual and issue number 0. Now, eventually, you will see the trials of Zilia's Socks. You'll see the trials of Ratchet and Scalix. They'll all be thrown into the blood ocean. And that's when you find out who they are and what they've done in the past. Man, poor Scalix, like, he had his whole skin ripped apart from his people. And remember when I said that we were going to go back to Earth? We are. But there is a little bit of a coup, if you will, going on within the Red Lanterns, that they don't really trust each other. And Atrocitus finds out who it is, who's behind rallying up other Red Lanterns to stand against him. So, on Earth, there's these two brothers. It's the characters of Jason and Raymond. They lose their grandfather. And you have the character of Raymond right here, who is a bit of a loose cannon. He's always on the other side of the law. And after their grandfather dies, like, they're always at each other's throats. The cops come in, and he's wanted for some kind of crime. And this is all taking place in the United Kingdom. And Jack has to see his brother, like, get beaten by the police. And that drives his rage. Because, the whole setup is, of course, the rage, right? And for the first time, we have someone from Earth that has been summoned to become a Red Lantern. So now they have a Red Lantern here on 2814. So Jack Moore becomes this character known as Rancor, or that's what he'll be calling himself. Now his mind has snapped because of the way the Red Lanterns are. But here, that's kind of the pitch for the first 6 issues through him. You get to see exactly how the Red Lanterns work and how your mind works and how you're able to keep your sanity. Again, it is mainly Ed Bennett's drawing the first 8 issues or so, and then eventually you have fill-in artists coming in, and we get a bunch of different artists working on the book. But the color tones, they almost stay true from issue number 1, with the exception of Bleeze, because when you first see Bleeze in the first few issues, she's obviously this blue-looking character right here. But later on, she has like this white tone to her skin. I'm not sure if that was because, I guess that can be explained by the blood ocean, if you will. There is a crossover with Stormwatch where they send Scalix here to Earth, and Stormwatch gets involved in it. It's a really awesome moment between Dex-Starr and Midnighter. But yeah, Scalix is fighting Midnighter and Apollo. But there's an awesome scene between Midnighter and Dex-Starr that comes back later on when Dex-Starr starts remembering Earth. Martian Manhunter during this time is, of course, part of Stormwatch. You have Fatale that is trying to recruit Bleeze to join the Indigo Lanterns. So you are going to see a lot of the different lanterns through here, especially towards the second arc, and of course during certain crossovers. And again, what you're going to see here is the cover, and then of course the back, or the black and white. So no issue numbers are collected here. This is the Rise of the Third Army storyline right here that went on through all of the Green Lantern story. You're only going to get the Red Lantern part of the story, though. And that crossover did involve the Green Lanterns and also the Sinestro Corps. But for this collection, you're only going to see that, and then, of course, issue number 20, which will set the new status quo of the Red Lanterns and Green Lantern and the new Guardians. So then we go to the new era of the Red Lanterns, and that is taking place here. So this will be Peter Milligan's final issue. He's kind of wrapping up some of the loose ends, especially with the character of Bleeze, what he was doing with the character of Krona and Atrocities, when Atrocities finds out that somebody steals his body, and then, of course, the character of Rancor and what it means to be human. Now, the next issue is the one that is actually written by Charles Soule, and he begins his era of the Red Lanterns. And with his era, we have a mission for the character of Guy Gardner, who has had ties to the Red Lanterns before, if you have read like Green Lantern or Blackest Night. And this is the Charles Soule era. Alessandro Vitti doing a lot of the artwork here towards the beginning of his era, and then later on it is Jim Calafiore. But Hal has asked, of all people, Guy Gardner, well, no, he's been a Red Lantern before, so it kind of makes sense, to go and keep tabs on the Red Lanterns to see what they're doing up there. And of course, there's miscommunication. People feel like they've been left behind. And then we get to this moment here. So he does fight Atrocitus for leadership of the Red Lanterns. And Atrocitus goes on his own journey to find something called the Butcher. And if you're familiar with the concept of Parallax, if you're familiar with the concept of Ion, then you know the Butcher is the entity that the Red Lanterns, like the embodiment of rage. And it's a Red Bull. It's a creepy looking Red Bull, but a Red Bull at that. And that will come into play for the storyline that is another crossover. But this crossover is all collected in here, the Lights Out crossover. So you're going to get the Green Lantern stories, you're going to get the Green Lantern Corps, and you're going to get the New Gardens in here. And this character of Relic, who plays a big part in all of this. And in this big crossover, the Lantern's lights are fading because the emotional spectrum is being drained. And since the Red Lanterns are a big part of the emotional spectrum, then it's up to them to team up with Hal and the Green Lanterns. And it's part of this big crossover. Now, I love that they bring Ice back into this. And Guy Gardner, of course, wearing now this ridiculous mustache. But what is collected in here really thoroughly is Tony Bedard's era of Supergirl when a fight with Lobo leads into her, I'm not going to spoil it, I promise, into her becoming a Red Lantern. Then she turns onto the Silver Banshee and has to fight her. And it is all collected through here. One of the things I haven't mentioned yet is the mapping. With the exception of the Third Army, which is not collected fully in here, and I can understand that otherwise this book would have been huge, well over 1,600 pages. Everything here is mapped to perfection. Even the way the Supergirl stories are just interwoven into the book. So for example, there is the Red Daughter of Krypton, but they're all facing the Judgment Day story here, with now Kara joining the actual Red Lanterns. So her story continues there, but she's also showing up in the Red Lanterns. So it's like you have Judgment Day Part 3 of Supergirl, and you've got Judgment Day Part 3 of the Red Lanterns. And I like the way it's mapped. It's like you go back and forth between both of the series. So, also in here, for the first time, I don't think this has been collected anywhere else, are these issues of Infinity Man and the Forever People. And a lot of that is this crossover for the Green Lantern's New Gods, the Godhead storyline. They can be read on their own because they're in different acts, but this is in the aftermath of what Kyle Rayner did as the White Lantern and what he ended up doing to the Source Wall. Now, the series does wrap up. It does have a conclusion with the last 2 issues in here, and I thought it was a bittersweet ending. But the very last thing, I just want to show you 1 page of it, or I guess 2 pages, is the Future's End story. This possible story that could have happened to the Red Lanterns, or I guess to Guy Gardner. Now, in the very back, we have the bonus material. Character designs here of the way Guy's going to look. There's pieces here by Kenneth Rocafort and also Jimmy Calafiore. The Manhunter designs. Yeah, this starts off as a very unique book because you're talking about a group of not likable villains. And it turns into something a little bit more, right? They give characters depth. I think Peter Milligan did an amazing job, and he had a hard task to make some of these characters likable, especially when they're ripping people apart and just puking that red, vile blood. Let's talk about the build. 1,456 pages, and sewn binding, and printed back to the glossy paper stock. So we're back to this era of the glossy paper stock. Rancor was a very unique character too, because through him, he got to keep his humanity and sanity. And how he was able to do that is a little bit of a mystery at first. But yes, as far as the way the book lays over, you do have minimal gutter loss. And that's probably due to the eye. It's not that big of an eye, but it is sewn binding. And minimal bleed through happening. But that is it. That is the Red Lanterns. Was it Hate? Is that what it was? Hate? Late? It's got to be like Together with Our Hate. Something like that. I'm sure I'll think about it later. But anyway, that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking this up, if you have never read this era of the lanterns, whether it's the yellow lanterns, of course, Sinestro, or the green lanterns, or even Larfries. Oh my gosh, I would love to see the orange lanterns collected one day in Omni format with Sinestro as well. But anyway, jumping ahead, if you have any questions, leave them down below. If you have read this, what did you think of the stories? That's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. We'll burn you all. That is your fate. That's it. That's it. What's the middle part, though? Something about hate. Anyway, have a great day.